Works Director, City of Bloomington. This is for the April 12th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Public Works. We're in a hybrid scenario, so we've got some folks that are on Zoom, and we've got the ability for the public to comment through the Zoom links and the Zoom meeting, and then we also are here in person at City Hall in Bloomington. So I will turn it over to Board President Kyla Cox-Deckard, and we will go from there.
Thank you. I call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Public Works this Tuesday, April 12th of 2022. First up, we have messages from board members. Do we have any messages from the board this evening?
Yes, I would just like to say to everyone that this is spring and it's a season for road closures and building projects. So just everyone be very safe, observe the signage, and not only keep yourself safe, but keep other people safe. So just want to keep that in mind.
Thank you. Next up, we have petitions and remonstrances. First item under petitions and remonstrances. Do you want me to call for petitions generally before I go into this first item, maybe? Yeah. Okay. Before we go into the first item, let me go ahead and call for any public comment on anything that is not on the agenda tonight. So if there's anyone who would like to make public comment about anything not on the agenda, we can take those comments now. If you are on Zoom, you can use the raised hand function or type in the chat. If you're here present, you can step forward to the podium or signal in some way. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the first item under petitions and remonstrances, which is Resolution 2022-11, Appeal Unsafe Order to Repair at 400 West 7th Street.
Green is on, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hi, good afternoon. Daniel Dixon, Assistant City Attorney with the Legal Department. I'm here tonight with John Zodi and Mike Arnold from the Hand Department and presenting and requesting the board affirm the March 11th, 2022 modified unsafe order to partially demolish the Johnson Creamery smokestack. For some background, the Hand Department first started taking action on this property back around December of 2021, following some increased reports about spalling brick falling off of the smokestack and landing in the area around that. At that point, the city decided that under the statute, the smokestack met the definition for unsafe as it posed a threat to persons or property, and issued an order to repair. That initial order to repair resulted in some additional studies by a group called RC Engineering, kind of at the behest of the property owner and also city hand staff. That report came back to us on March 1st, 2022, and revealed a fair amount of additional information about the condition of the smokestack. That report is also included in the packet, and I apologize for the length that that takes up. But it is a very thorough report, and I think explains the condition very well. Essentially, the sort of bird's eye view of the report is the smokestack is unsafe. It needs to be reduced to a height not to exceed 60 feet in order for it to be stable to comply with code. It's just not possible for it to be fixed or repaired at any height above 60 feet. The engineer said there was, in theory, a way to do it, but it would require a whole lot of interventions to the structure that could potentially compromise and cause the rest of the thing to collapse. So the decision was made at that point to modify the order to 60 feet. In the meantime, as this has sort of been going on, this property is also a National Register of Historic Places property. It's been that way since, I believe, the 90s, although it has never until recently been considered for local historic designation. We went through that process with the property owner and concluded that last Wednesday. It was locally designated, and the map of that property also includes the smokestack. In tandem with that, the Historic Preservation Commission reviewed and approved the owner's certificate of appropriateness to go ahead and remove the top portion of the stack and lower it to a height of 60 feet. And so those processes are already in place. And so this is kind of that last piece of the puzzle, is to make this a final order. And to give some context about why I'm here talking to you about this order now, there are certain types of unsafe orders that do not require hearing before the Board of Public Works. Those are things like orders to repair or orders to seal structures that may be, subject to intrusion by weather or rats or something else. Those don't typically require a hearing unless the owner requests one. And then there are certain orders that do require hearings in front of the Board of Public Works for you all to have an opportunity to review them and either affirm or modify. Because this is an order to demolish, the Indiana Code requires that we present this to you and request that you affirm our order. And so that is what we are doing tonight, and we are happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. And can you just restate for the board what decision you're looking for from the board this evening?
Certainly. So we are asking that the board affirm the modified unsafe order that was issued by hand on March 11th, 2022. Typically, you might see these as like an appeal. This isn't an appeal. It's just we've got to do it by statute. So that's why we're saying affirm.
Thank you.
I just have a question, Daniel. When will they begin the demolition?
We have, there's some issues that may come up with that, primarily being that AT&T still has equipment on the stack. We're still trying to get a date certain from AT&T that would give us an idea of, essentially when that can begin. If the situation merits it, we can issue additional unsafe orders to AT&T as a tenant of that structure to actually vacate if it becomes necessary. We're just not at that point to make that determination yet. But we are hopeful that with the certificate of appropriateness issued and the historic designation question answered, that essentially once everything's ready to go, they can just start the work and get it done as soon as possible and kind of minimize the amount of disruption that we're having on the B line and to the other city services in the area.
So you'll let us know as soon as that begins to take.
Yes, and they'll have to
Take
still
place.
get the permits and everything else, so that, yeah.
Okay.
And what's the length of time that this order gives the property owner to do that work?
It gives them 60 days, which is, under the statute, is the most amount of time that we're allowed to give them. We recognize that given all the procedural steps that we've had to go through just to get to this point, that's sort of impossible for them to do. But as long as they are still engaging and making substantial progress towards this goal, there's no enforcement action or anything else to take. It's sort of a backstop date in case they, for some reason, abandon entirely.
Okay.
I apologize, I can't put my finger on this in the packet immediately. What's the current height? I know you're taking it down to 60 feet, but what is the height of the smokestack right now?
It's approximately 140 feet.
140, okay, thank you.
And the certificate of appropriateness that the Historic Preservation Commission has offered says that it needs to maintain the 60 feet. Is that correct? So the
Correct.
demolition can only go down to the 60 feet?
Correct.
And then if something would happen in the process, in this demolition process, that would somehow infringe on that 60 feet, the property owner would be responsible to basically construct it up to 60 feet? Is that accurate?
Yes. In broad terms, yes. It would be under the purview of the commission at that
Okay.
point to determine how that gets remedied.
Okay.
So this isn't just a city code, it's a state code. I looked that up too. It's just code for seismic activity. It has to be 60 feet or lower.
I'm sorry, you said,
Seismic activity, in case there's
From
a...
the engineering
From the
report, I
engineering.
think is what.
Yeah,
yeah, the concern about, I guess, at its current height, not being able to I guess, I forget
Right.
the exact wording of it, but not being able to withstand kind of a standard seismic load that you would expect a building built to today's standard to be able to withstand. And it's not built to that, and the engineering report essentially says if you reduce it down to a height of 60 feet, then it's at that point where it is at code and it can
Meets
sort of...
code, yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
And this was a question that we discussed in the work session, but if the property owner and the contractors they're working with need to infringe on the right-of-way during this process, they'll be coming back to the board for that request. Is that correct?
I believe so, to the extent that it would cover your properties. There may also be some infringement potentially on park commissioner's property if it's the Beeline Trail, but there's processes in place for them to request those things.
Okay, great.
they've got a fairly significant buffer in there, so our hope is that they can pretty much contain it all within their property.
Very good. Any other questions on this item? Do we have any public comment on this item? If you're on Zoom, you can use raised hand or put a comment in the chat. Okay. And so the property owners, they're not in attendance, is that correct?
I don't believe they are. They're not required to be.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Well, I just wanted to offer, before we call for a motion on this item, I just wanted to offer my comments and thanks to the city staff and the Historic Preservation Commission and the city council for all of the work that has come before this item has arrived at the Board of Public Works. I, of course, had a little sinking feeling in my heart when I saw this in the packet. As you know, Bloomington resident, I think it is a landmark, and I know we all have different opinions on to what degree of importance it has, but I appreciate everyone going through the process to work to make it as safe as possible while also preserving what character it can offer and nod to our history as a community. I look forward to this being resolved soon so that we can move on to other things, but I just wanted to extend my appreciation to everyone who's done quite a significant amount of work up to this point to get us to where we are today.
Yes, I agree, and I enjoyed all the pictures and a little bit of a history lesson about the city and that important Johnson Creamery was to our city at the time. So it's all good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that the engineering report was very enlightening in the sense that there would not be a way to construct a structure like this today and meet building code, and that it's reached its end of life in this structure, and so appreciate the ability to try to preserve what we can
Yeah.
at
And I
this
hope
time.
they include the logo of the Johnson Creamery on the side in a different way, but to let people know that are not familiar with the whole history, that they know that it is a Johnson Creamery stack. So, hope they do that.
All right, do we have a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the modification of the unsafe order to repair from March 11th, 2022.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have Title VI Enforcement, abatement at 1520 South Woodruff Lane.
Hello, I'm Joe Stong. I'm one of the neighborhood enforcement officers, compliance officers for HAND, Housing and Neighborhood Development. And we are requesting permission to enter this property to abate violations of the trash ordinances of the city. We wrote tickets on 4 different occasions and posted them at the property, and we've heard there's been no response, no cleaning up from the owners or anyone. So we're asking for permission to go ahead and do that.
And you said it is owner occupied.
It is.
I just want to confirm you have had no communication with the owners from yesterday's work session to today.
Nope.
Okay.
I think, and they're not here this evening.
No, unless they're on the chat or something.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item, either on Zoom with a raised hand or a chat or here in person? All right, seeing,
And you do not want a continuous abatement.
No, I don't believe so.
All right,
I think it should be a one-time cleanup.
thank you.
okay, seeing no public comment, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the abatement at the property at 1520 South Woodruff Lane.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, we have the approval of minutes for March 15th of 2022. Noise permit Beyond the Diagnosis HIV Visibility Walk. Noise permit TDs, CDs, and LPs picnic. Resolution 2022-16, Indiana Jacobs School of Music Summer Concerts. Resolution 2022-18, new mobile vendor in the public right-of-way for Bloom Burger. Blue Ridge Neighborhood Block Party. A 2022 contract renewal for abatement services with Chris Underwood, DBA 4U Lawn and Landscape. 2022 contract for abatement services with Jeremy Inman, DBA Inman Property Services. Resolution 2022-12, declaration of surplus property from BPD. Outdoor lighting service agreement from Duke Energy for Buttonwood Lane. 2022 Kone contract for elevator services. Contract with Bluestone Tree, Inc. for dead tree and undergrowth removal at Animal Care and Control, and approval of payroll. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda this evening? Seeing none. Do we have any public comment on the consent agenda this evening? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, under new business, we have award contract for 17th Street Multi-Use Path Project East to Milestone Contractors, LP.
Good evening. Roy Aiton with the City Engineering Department. As the board remembers, they opened bids yesterday during our work session for the 17th Street project. This project will construct the multi-use path of the north side of 17th Street from Walnut Street to Grant Street, resurface the asphalt, and upgrade curb ramps in order to provide a multimodal safety improvement within the corridor. The project is programmed using local funds through the TIF bond proceeds West 17th Street area. This award will become contingent upon approval of the funding at the next regular redevelopment commission meeting. The earliest day for the contract to begin work will be on May 9th, 2022, after the Indiana University graduation ceremony. The project will close the westbound traffic on 17th Street between Dunn and Walnut and install a detour route that uses Dunn Street, the bypass, and College Avenue. The project will run for 120 days and has an anticipated completion date around the end of August. The board received 2 bids yesterday for the project. The first for Kreider & Kreider, Inc. in the amount of $1,484,301.98, and the second for Milestone Contractors in the amount of $1,192,901.58, with Milestone Contractors LP as the apparent lowest responsive and responsible bidder.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
So you'll be bringing it to us when it's time to close the roads? Or
Well,
does this
we-
include closures?
The bringing it back to
Yeah,
the board? No, this will also approve the
Include
closure
that.
for this project, yes.
And this is the portion that the city is taking care of. This has been a project we've talked about a lot, so I just wanted to make sure I have an understanding. This is the
Correct.
city portion of the project.
Yes, so the project originally went from Monroe Street all the way to Grant. We've divided it in half. This is the city portion from Walnut to Grant. And then the NDOT letting, which will be coming up in May, will do the other half, the west half.
Okay,
The
thank
project.
you.
I assume once you had a chance to look through both bids, you saw no red flags with the difference in cost between the 2 bids?
No, everything on both bids looked okay. Yep.
Any other questions from the board? Any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the award the contract for 17th Street Multi-Use Path Project East to Milestone Contractors LP.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, lane closure request from the Standard on North Walnut Street and East 14th Street. Is staff on?
Good
the
evening.
same- Oh, there
Can
we go.
everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, this is Paul Kerber with the Engineering Department. The Standard at Bloomington is continuing their utility work, and they need to do the storm sewer. And this will go from the edge of their property and head west along the curb on 14th Street, and then cross Walnut Street. And as part of this work, they will need to do a single lane closure on North Walnut. They'll do it in 2 phases. They'll close the right lane, then the left lane. And then also they'll need to close the eastbound lane on 14th as they do that work. They'll keep one of the driveways to the apartments on the southeast corner open, so they maintain access while they're doing their work. And they anticipate the closures to start this week, the 13th, and extend through May 13th, 2022. There's a representative, Eric Schulte, on here also, if there's any more questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
Could you repeat the dates, please? Again.
So I have the 13th. We'll actually we'd like to start this work on Monday, the 18th. So we've been working with the other contractor that's doing the work in that intersection for the stoplights and sidewalk upgrades there. So we've been kind of coordinating with them. So our plan is to get in there next week, the 18th, to do that work in Walnut Street to get out ahead of them. So that's kind of what we're thinking, 18th through, whatever that, about 3-4 weeks to get done. So
that obviously would go into IU's commencement, so any kind of traffic considerations, 'cause that's a pretty busy part of town with students.
And
we will
just
be out of
quickly,
Walnut Street.
Mr. Schulte, if you could just state your name for the record, just to make sure we get your comments properly.
Yeah, I'm Eric Schulte I'm the project manager for Landmark Construction. We are the contractor on the standard project.
Thank you. So regarding the traffic plan, I know this came up in the work session yesterday. Could you just reiterate how you'll be mitigating traffic impacts in the middle of the commencement season?
So our plan is we will be out of Walnut Street, hopefully within a week. So basically the 18th through the 25th. So as Paul had stated, we'll have the left lane shut down first for probably a couple of days, and then the right lane shut down for a couple of days. And then, within a week, we should be kind of out of the 14th and Walnut intersection. And then we should just be on 14th Street going forward. I don't know if that is as critical for commencement. I mean, if we need to shut down work, we can for a week or so, whatever that, the main thing is to get out of that intersection. That's the most important thing, to get ahead of the city's other contractor doing that work in that intersection. So that's the high priority right now, so.
Continue the work on 14th Street, and then the city also has a signal installation project going on at 14th and Walnut that we've been real appreciative of the coordination with the standard on that. So thanks for that, Eric.
So yeah, if we need to stop work on, I'm sorry about that. Charlie. Yeah, so if we need to shut down 14th Street work during commencement, we can. I mean, that wouldn't be a deal
We'll be
breaker
sure to
by
work
any
with you
means.
on that, but we didn't see any issue.
Any other questions from the board on this item? Any public comment on this item? You can use a raised hand or chat function on Zoom, or step forward or signal to us here in the room.
On Zoom.
Seeing no comments, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve lane closure requests from the Standard on North Walnut Street and East 14th Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have right-of-way request from Carmel Construction for dumpster placement, and this is April 13th, 2022 through May 30th of 2022.
Hi, yes, Mike Stewart here with the Engineering Department. Carmel Construction is requesting 2 parking spaces on West 6th Street for a placement of a dumpster. Previously, on the March 15th, 2022 BPW. It was approved for Friday, Saturday, and Sundays for the duration of the project. It was found that they actually required the use of the dumpster basically throughout the work week, just due to the amount of trash that they are generating as they do renovations to the Hilton Garden Inn. They have currently paid all of their meter fees to the controller as needed, and would anticipate to pay the upcoming meter fees if it were approved by the Board of Public Works, basically through the duration of May 30th. It was approved at the staff level for the basically the past week and a half. I believe April 4th is when it was approved at staff level. And then we would be looking for Board of Public Works approval to take it through the duration. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Any public comment on Zoom or in person? Seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the right-of-way request from Carmel Construction for dumpster placement April 13th, 22 through May 30th, 22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is right-of-way vacation request for alleys between West 10th Street, West Cottage Grove Avenue, and North Monroe Street.
Good evening, Liz Carter, Senior Zoning Compliance Planner for the Planning and Transportation Department. Mr. Lowenstein, who's with us this evening, has requested a vacation of a couple of alleys in the Lone Star Addition. They are located between West College Grove Avenue, North Monroe Street, and the east-north swing of West 10th Street. As part of the vacation process, first, this petition is sent out to utilities and public safety entities. They weigh in, give comments to staff. Once we collect those comments, get all the materials together, they come to the Board of Public Works for a recommendation before the petition is filed with council. Once it's filed with council, the city council will have 30 days to hear it, at least at a first reading. So we're here for your recommendation this evening. As we discussed in the work session, we received responses from a couple of the utilities. Duke and Centerpoint did not really have any comments. CBU was unsupportive of part of the vacation as they had a 6-inch water main there. And the city engineer, Andrew Seabour, is also, he was questioning the community benefit and justification of the vacation. If you have any questions for me or for Mr. Lowenstein, please let us know.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item? We talked about this a little bit in the work session, but just to clarify, when we had that discussion yesterday, there are no planned developments on any of those properties that would be part of a plan commission approval or request of that nature.
Correct. At this point, we don't have any building permits, site plans, development proposals coming through that this vacation would speak to.
Thank you.
And I'll just, Adam Wason, Public Works Director, just remind the board that any recommendations you would make tonight, either for approval, denial, or no recommendation, is an advisory decision to the city council. It does not have any full standing or anything. The final decisions with all of this rest with the city council.
Any public comment, and that includes from the petitioner. Any comments at this time?
Mr. Lowenstein, would you like to offer any comments or anything to the board? Yeah.
Yeah, please, you're welcome to.
Just state your name for the record and feel free.
My name is Solomon L. Lowenstein, Jr. I am the property owner and the applicant for this request. The basic need for the request is there are improvements that are located within the right-of-way that pre-existed the right-of-way being approved by the Common Council in 1928. I cannot explain why the improvements were not noted on the plan that was submitted to Common Council. Specifically at Lot 11, the garage does need some repair. I would like to do some repair, but it is located within the right-of-way, and I'm concerned that I put funds into that project, and it causes further problems with the right-of-way. There are no utilities within that right-of-way between Lot 11 and Lot 12. That right-of-way also cuts off a foot of the house in that on Lot 12. Previously, when the utilities have needed to come into the right-of-way to the north of the properties, there is no access because of the location of the improvements and the vegetation. They used, with my permission, the driveway at Lot 12, even though that is not in the right-of-way. I am still willing to allow any utility to get access to to the utility pole that is in the right-of-way and the water lines. There is no utility service between Lot 18 and Lot 17, and that is a very steep drop-off, about 20 feet to the north towards West Cottage Grove Avenue. I have been maintaining the rights-of-way for the last 20-plus years myself, and I would request that the Board of Public Works approve the recommendation as the right-of-way did not consider the pre-existing improvements when it was granted. And I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Ms. Carter, I just have one question that I think is probably directed to city staff. At this time, there's not any request for an encroachment on the right-of-way, which would sometimes be the process for something that comes into the right-of-way. Is that correct?
Right, so an encroachment agreement is something that the engineering department brings to you guys all the time. So there is no current request for an encroachment agreement. My understanding is encroachment agreements typically come about when we have a new development where we can tell that something's going to encroach, or if someone has made a complaint about a pre-existing encroachment. So neither of those are the case, and we don't have any encroachment agreements coming forward.
Okay, thank you.
Is it also fair to state that those encroachment agreements would state things like, this agreement's allowed under these circumstances until at which point the city would make public improvements? That's pretty typical for those agreements, correct?
It's usually if the city determines that they need to make public improvements, or if, for example, if there was a structure that was encroaching in the alley that has CBU's water main. If CBU needed to move that structure to repair the water main, they would be welcome to do so at the owner's expense, the owner of the structure.
Be a different request.
What?
It'd be a different request than vacation.
Correct.
Right, exactly.
And if someone were to want to make an improvement that would be an improvement on something encroaching, what would typically be the process for that?
So without going deeply into the UDO, if you had an encroachment agreement on a structure that was encroaching into the right-of-way, it would be considered a lawful non-conforming. So a lot of people say grandfathered in. To fix something up would probably be fine, but to increase the height, to increase the square footage, that would be problematic. But if you're just doing basic repairs to a structure that has an encroachment agreement, I think that you would have no problem pulling a building permit for the work, and it would be no problem.
So in order to do an improvement to something that is encroaching on the right-of-way, there would need to be an encroachment agreement? Is that?
Almost certainly, because if the improvements rose to the level that a building permit had to be pulled, it would be applied for at the county building department, the plans would come to the planning department, they would see this garage that you're trying to fix up, or, this part of your house that you're trying to fix up is in the right of way, and that's when that would trigger, you need an encroachment agreement before we can go any further.
Okay.
Because they can't approve work that doesn't meet code.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not. Okay, any other public comment on this item? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we recommend to the Common Council denial of the right-of-way vacation request for alleys between West 10th Street, West Cottage Grove Avenue, and North Monroe Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have Resolution 2022-13, Summer Solstice Celebration.
Hey there. My name is Holly Warren. I'm Assistant Director for the Arts for the City of Bloomington. Thanks for hosting us tonight. I'm here to propose on behalf of the Oak storefront that's on the northeast corner of 4th and Grant Street to have a 2-year celebration party on 4th Street, just east of the Grant Street and 4th intersection, through about half of that block up to the alleyway at the Korea restaurant. The celebration would take place on Tuesday, June 21st. That's the summer solstice. Festivities would start at about 3 p.m. and go until about 9 p.m. Setup for the event and the street closure would start at about 1 p.m. and go through 11 p.m. The street would be closed off in order for vendors to be able to set up their stations. The stations would include both arts vendors as well as some holistic practitioners. At 8 p.m., there would be a live music performance that would also take place. In addition to requesting this street closure, we're also requesting the use of 3 parking spaces so an RV can park there for the performer, who will also be putting out some of their work as part of the celebration. So we do know that Hidden River construction is going to be going on very close to where this is going to be taking place, but we have spoken with our engineering department about this, and they have shared that that construction area will not encroach on the area where we will be hosting this festival. Instead, that construction area will stop east of Grant Street. So as long as the festival is not in the intersection of 4th and Grant, they have signed off on us being able to do this. They've just asked that we put up barriers there, not allow anyone to actually go into that intersection, and the contractor for the Hidden River has actually offered to provide security personnel to stand there and just keep people safe. We've also shared this information with multiple departments around the city, including the fire department, the police department, again, the Office of Engineering, and the Office of the Mayor's Office, and they have all given their approval for this to go forward. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions on this item? And I'm going to admit, we've had a lot of street closure discussions, and they're all kind of blurring together because they're all in the same area. So just to reemphasize, Grant will be open.
Correct.
It's the block
Yes.
to the east.
Correct. Yes.
At 4th and Grant.
Right.
That would be closed. And then Hidden River,
Hidden River will be west of that. That's where the construction will be.
so still in the same
Yes.
place it is right now.
Right.
So access for any of the structures, businesses, residences that have currently adjusted for Hidden River will still maintain access
Yes.
with this.
Yeah.
They'll be able to take Grant and get to
Right.
the alternate access point.
And the only restaurant impacted is the Korea restaurant, and they have agreed to have this.
Yes, the information has been shared with all
Yeah.
restaurants in the area. And again, we're hoping that they see this as an opportunity for visitors who will be there at the festival to also access these restaurants, eat on their porch. There will not be any food vendors as part of this. It will only be arts and holistic practitioners who are showing up. So,
And the event itself ends at 9 p.m., which is also when, like, the noise would
correct.
conclude,
That's when the
right?
noise will cease. Yes, that's when the performance is done. Yeah.
Any other questions? Any public comment on this item? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
that we approve Resolution 2022-13, Summer Solstice Celebration.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Resolution 2022-15, Grand Falloon Main Stage Concert and Bloomington Handmade Market.
All right, it's me again, Holly Warren, Assistant Director for the City of Bloomington for the Arts. So this is a larger footprint, and we've actually invited some of our colleagues from Indiana University to share more information, but I'll give you a brief overview of this. So this is part of a larger festival that has happened annually on a regular basis, I think leading up to COVID, called Grand Falloon. Generally, this will take place in a location like a parking lot that really doesn't affect public right-of-way. This year, the footprint of this is greatly expanding because we're bringing in a couple of large musical acts, and Grand Falloon is also partnering with the Handmade Market. So the footprint for this year's festival will start just east of Washington Street on Kirkwood and go all the way past Dunn, about halfway down that block. The Grand Falloon portion of the festival will be between Washington and Lincoln. So as part of that, there will be a stage, a VIP area, a green room area for the artists, a pit, and again, this is for VIP people who pay more to see the bands closer. And then there will also be a beer garden that's a little further west on that block, closer to Lincoln. The rest of those blocks will be used for handmade market vendors. So again, that is the area between Lincoln and Grant, Grant and Dunn, and then just a little east of the intersection of Dunn and Kirkwood. And again, these will just be vendors with tables and booths set up to sell things. What else do I want to tell you about this? The Handmade Market will go from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, June 4th. Again, I should have said that earlier. Sorry, that's the day of the festival. And the Grand Falloon festivities will kick off at about 5 p.m. with audience members starting to come into that block closer to the stage at about 4 p.m. So it'll be Handmade Market, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Grand Falloon, audience starts coming in at 4, and those festivities go until about 11 p.m. that evening. Because this is such a large undertaking and we're going to be putting an actual stage on just east of Washington, we're requesting that we be able to shut down. Well, we don't need to, actually, we don't need to shut it down. We're just asking that we be able to begin setting up on the evening of Friday, June 3rd. That's when we'll be loading in all the equipment. Then we will be returning on Saturday, June 4th, very early in the morning to finish that setup, do sound checks, and again, just make sure all the vendors have their booths set up and ready to go when Handmade opens. I'm going to tell you a couple other things about the Grand Falloon portion of this. So we're going to be closing the south sidewalk between Washington and Lincoln because that's where the VIP area is. So that pedestrian traffic will be rerouted to the north side of that sidewalk. And then we are also partnering with public or private waste and security vendors, many who have affiliations with IU, to do all of the waste management and security, just acknowledging that while the city's police and fire department will be there on an emergency basis, they just don't have the capacity to be there 24/7 to be security in the area. And again, like the Solstice Festival, we have worked very intently for the past several months with members of the fire department, the police department, and engineering, and lovely Adam and April, just to make sure we could get this proposal to a place that everybody is happy with. So again, fire department, police department, engineering, and the office of the mayor have all signed off on this. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm also going to introduce my two colleagues, Ed and Gerard, to also help answer questions because they have been very, very involved with this process over the last several months. So thanks.
Thank you.
Well, along with the main stage concert and the Handmade Market, there'll be other events happening in town with the library and the Wonder Lab. I know there are different things going on all day, so it'll be a festival that happens all day along with what's going on later.
Yeah, and this is actually part of a larger multi-day festival that's going on, but leading up to the 4th, all of those events will be taking place at venues including the BCT and the public library. So those events that are happening prior to the 4th will have no effect on the right-of-way.
Yes, but that's part of it.
Kelly, yesterday during our work session, you gave us a just a guess of attendance, but I don't
Yes.
remember what that number was.
Yeah, we're estimating roughly 5,000. We are anticipating it could get a little higher than that, again, just because of how well-known the acts that we're bringing in are.
And remind me, I know I heard the portion about the VIP section and all that. Is this a partially ticketed event or a fully ticketed event?
So open to the public, but you can get a VIP ticket to
Okay.
get closer to the stage. Correct me if I've got that wrong.
There are two ticketed ways of accessing the event. One is a VIP.
Okay, I'm going to have you come up to the microphone, sorry. I know it's what everyone does not want to do, but if you could just introduce yourself, then the people on Zoom can also hear.
I'm Ed Commentali. I'm the Director of the Arts and Humanities Council at IU. Thanks for hearing our request this evening. There are two ticketed areas for the main stage concert. One is a VIP area. We're expecting maybe about 150, 200 people in the VIP area. And then there's a pit right in front of the stage. That's what we're calling it, a pit. And that is also a ticketed spot. We're expecting maybe 400 to 500 ticket holders for the pit. The rest of the street will be open and accessible to the general public without tickets.
Okay.
Is that?
So will there be barricades along the northern sidewalk where there would remain public access, but it will go past like the pit area? So for ticketing purposes, do you all just plan to have a barricade there?
That's exactly right. We're working with IU Athletics and IU Conferences and Events to ensure security and barricades and all of what you might expect in a public event of this sort.
This is a city question, city staff question probably. Is there, buildings have capacities. Is there such a thing as a street capacity?
So we worked very closely with BPD and their representatives to determine kind of size, scope, and all of that, and they were comfortable with what has been proposed. There will also be, Homeland Security inspections day of, all of those sorts of things that would come with a festival of this size.
Thanks.
Will the IU Police Department be involved in this also?
They will be involved. IU also contracts with a private security firm, and so it'll be a mixture of IU police force as well as private security officers as well.
We talked about this a little bit in the work session. Have you been able to make contact with all of the organizations that are there along the stretch that will be closed, including particularly the churches for whatever, weddings or events they might be having that day?
We wrote to all the businesses at the start of the school year in September, and then last month we wrote to every address on Kirkwood that would be impacted, both residential and business. And since then we've gone door to door to speak to the business on the 200 block. And yes, we did meet with the church, and the pastor is a Kurt Vonnegut fan, so we were happy to make that connection.
Maybe some Kurt Vonnegut themed weddings could be on.
That was proposed, and I'm not kidding.
I'm not surprised.
Maybe the Vonnegut family will be down, too.
What's that?
Vonnegut family may be here, too.
Yes, we're in touch with
Yeah,
Kurt's
sure.
daughters.
Yes.
They're big supporters of the fest. They've been here before.
Yes, they have. I
Yeah.
met them, yeah.
Any other questions on this item? So Handmade Market's going to be completely disassembled. Like the booths will be gone when the music starts?
Talia Holiday is on the Zoom, and she might want to comment on their
Okay.
setup and breakdown.
Talia, are you able to comment on the time frame for breakdown of the Handmade Market? She might not have audio. She might. We'll confirm that. That was kind of the initial discussion. Was by the time the main concerts begin is when the Handmade Market would have been shut down by then, and the market's going to be further down as well. So that'll be there'll be more in the blocks between Lincoln and Dunn than they will be in the main block between Washington and Lincoln. Did I say that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
And there'll be other community and partner booths along the stretch with the Handmade Market, and we've all worked with them to make sure they're closing down at 4. I just was hoping that Talia would
Yeah.
speak for
Okay.
herself. Yeah.
Do you have a rain date?
No, we are working with IU Auditorium to move the event
Okay.
inside if there is an issue with the weather.
You've worked so hard on this and for so long. I
That's right.
would want it to occur
get one
someplace.
shot.
That's right.
I can make a few calls about the weather.
Thanks a lot, Adam.
If
luck.
only. All right, and one other thing that came up yesterday in the work session, just want to reiterate it again, that the restaurants that are using street space for dining will still have access to their dining areas during this time. It might be a whole new experience for diners, but they would still have access to those tables, is that right?
That's exactly right. And we've met with owners at Lenny's, Nick's, Uptown about their current situation and making sure that they feel comfortable with the arrangement and letting them know that we want to work with them to make sure that customers have access and they're visible as open that day.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on this item? And what time is music set to stop?
We're expecting around 10:30
Okay,
on that Saturday evening.
all right. All right, any public comment on this item?
I see none on Zoom.
Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
Oh, I'm
Oh, sorry,
Um,
maybe there's,
Talia is raising her hand.
oh, okay, great.
So, Talia, I've asked you to unmute. Can you unmute? Do you have audio? If you'd like to use the chat function, I can just read that off for you.
Might be having some audio connection issues.
That's fine.
My guess is Talia is here to speak in support of the event. But Talia, if you want to send us a chat or an email with your comment, I can make sure to get that over to the board as well. Yep.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't get a chat and just to get,
Oh, that's the captions. The computer screen has the live captions going too. Or-
I have nothing in chat from her.
okay.
Maybe it was an inadvertent hand raise, who knows?
Classic.
All right.
All right. We no longer see any comment.
Oh, she's given a thumbs up, so I
Okay.
think she heard us.
We will,
Yes.
we will record into the record a thumbs up was offered.
Thanks,
By
Talia.
Talia Holiday. All right, with no additional public comment, do we have a motion on this item?
I move that we approve Resolution 2022-15, Ground Falloon Main Stage Concert in Bloomington Handmade Market.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thanks.
Thank you. Hope it goes well.
Next up, we have staff reports and other business.
Adam Mason, Public Works Director. Just a couple brief things today. We're excited to hopefully start getting some good weather and see those parklets and outdoor dining spaces start to fill up. In addition, just want to make a note to the board that we have, we had a great kickoff meeting this morning with Public Works staff as part of our American Public Works Association accreditation process. So did a big 3-hour kickoff meeting with them on the accreditation roadmap and starting that process. So something we're really looking forward to for Public Works. We've never sought an accreditation like that. So it'll be a probably 18 to 24-month process in the end, but something we're really looking forward to. It's all about professionalization and standard operating procedures, meeting national standards and benchmarks, things like that. So something we're really excited to get underway. I want to thank Christina Smith and April Rosenberger and the rest of the Public Works staff that's really starting to take that project and run with it. So something we're excited for. That's all I have for today.
So that's national accreditation?
It is, yeah. The American Public Works Association's the national association representing public works departments, something like 25,000 member agencies across the country and Canada. We first, this first kind of came up in my first years in public works, went to their national conference, got to know some of their leadership and what they do. Fishers, Indiana is currently the only city in the state of Indiana accredited by the APWA. So we went up and saw their facilities and operations, and jealousy ensued.
Yes. Jealousy ensued.
Does accreditation basically give like the Public Works Department access to like education, training, best practices? Does it prepare for other types of like expanded funding or anything like that?
In the end, it really is just more of the, it's more of creating making sure that you have policies and procedures in place for each of your responsibility areas that meet those national standards. Would it possibly open us up for different grant funding? Possibly. I haven't seen anything through the APWA that says in order to apply for this you must be accredited, but so we're looking at it more from the perspective of, it was interesting today because we, in the exercises we were doing things like, do you have a snow control policy? And it turns out we do. It's on paper. It's several years old, but as we were going through the standards of what a policy would entail for that type of operation, it was very clear. Oh yeah, every one of those things we have in some way, shape, or form, but it's centralizing the information, documenting the procedures and policies, and creating those standard operating procedures. The way I put it to staff today was we did our training in this room. I think there were 14 of us or so, but I think we had a combined almost like 200 plus years of service, just amongst that group of staff. But then I said, the other thing to think about here too is amongst the 125 plus employees of Public Works, how many possibly 1,000 plus years of experience is there? How do we capture that knowledge in ways to, inform the next generation of Public Works employees? Or, we've got several employees that are in their 30-something year with the city that probably won't be with us in city employment for very much longer. So how do we, capture and harness that so that it's, you have good succession type planning in place for those sorts of things. So we're excited for it. It'll help us with our goal setting process as part of our budgets each year. The big thing I said is this allows us to say, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing in a successful way? Are we, really doing it
Successfully.
Yes, thank you. I'm not even going to try that again. But so we're excited. It's going to be some hard work. We're kind of shifting some resources in the department to be able to have an accreditation manager for the project. You really have to have somebody that's the day-to-day, not necessarily day-to-day where they're spending 100% of their time, but day-to-day oversight of the process and doing all the documentation. We always have SPIA fellows on board as well. That's going to be one of their big focuses in assisting with that. So just good, fun, geeky public works stuff. Yeah.
You have to reapply for this at any time?
Yeah, so every 4 years, all your policies and procedures have to be revisited and updated as needed.
That's good.
And then I think accreditation's every 5th year renewal type of thing, so.
I realize we've had several iterations of packets for this meeting. There was an update on an event that was moved, that was
the Cinco de Mayo.
Not the Cinco de Mayo. It was the one at Switchyard Brewing. Spring
yes.
Fling,
It
yes.
was moved to April 30th and May 1st.
Okay.
Yep.
And that was,
So we're going to move that event. It was supposed to be this last weekend with the bad weather. And I'm so glad you said there was something else because I do need to update the board as well. Strausser Construction up on the 1300 block of North Lincoln there, just north of 17th Street. They were scheduled, I think, through April 16th, through the end of this week, to have that road closure. Ryan was here earlier. He sent staff a message. They've had a few rain days here with weather. They think they're going to need probably another week. We're going to approve that at a staff level at this time, and then if they need more than that, we'll come back to you at the next board meeting.
Okay. Thanks.
The weather report is correct for tomorrow. There's going to be no work day
That's what
tomorrow.
he thought he might be able, if the weather the rest of the week was perfect, they
Right,
thought they
but
might get there, but I've looked
tomorrow.
at the forecast and, yeah, so.
Pretty strong storms.
And with that, for the general public that's watching this evening, there is expected possible extreme weather tomorrow with heavy storms and things late afternoon, early evening. So be prepared, have your plans in place for any potential real extreme weather events.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's all I have now.
Thanks. All right, next up is approval of claims. Are there any questions on claims? Any public comment on claims?
No comments.
All right, do we have a motion on the claims?
I move that we approve claims $968,344.13.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And with that, if we have nothing else, I will call for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.